And we have a visitor here today, a guest, and I thought we were going to have a little something on the screen, and I think it's coming, maybe. Here we come, and it says, Grandpa lives here. He's just moved in. And I can't read the rest, but this is outside a door on 3rd floor, Parkview.
Yes.
And we're happy to have the occupant of that apartment, Lou DeWilde, right here with us. Lou, we thank you for coming on Channel 6.
It's a great pleasure.
And I know that we're going to have an interesting half hour, but first of all, let's take a trip back to Holland. Holland, that is, right?
Right.
Okay.
The Netherlands sometimes.
The Netherlands, all right. You start out and tell me what that means, okay? Let's go there.
Well, it's a really flat country, and lots of canals. And where I lived, it was a double brick house occupied by our family and my dad's partners in the nursery business. He lived there also.
Oh.
And we called him Oom, which means uncle in Dutch. But he really was not my uncle. But,
just a good friend.
Just a friend of the family, so to speak. And in order to reach our house, we had to cross a little railed footbridge. Which was
because it was kind of an island.
Yes, it was really an island.
It was an island, okay.
It was completely surrounded by canals. And you had to, from the street, you had to take a long pole and hook it onto the bridge and pull it across because it was on a turntable.
Ah, okay.
One of the dirty tricks that the kids used to play is to throw the pole in the canal so that you had to fish it out.
Oh, boy.
You know. But it was on a chain, fortunately, so if they did that, you could pull it up.
Something in my memory says you know something about that water.
Yes, yes. I was about 5 years old when I was using a little fish net to catch minnows in the canal, and I poked once too often, and I followed the pole into the canal.
How did you get out then?
And I screamed and hollered and went down, I think 3 or 4 times.
Under the water?
Under the water, and I was had learned somewhere that when you went down 4 times, that was the end of it.
So after 3, you thought, uh-oh.
Yeah, so I really screamed, and my mother and the maid, we had a live-in maid at the time, they came out and fished me out just in time. We were all pretty hysterical.
Yeah, well, we're glad they fished you out. Okay, all right, let's kind of move on now. So that was in the Netherlands or Holland, but you're here in America. How'd you get here?
Yes, well, I was born there just before the First World War in 1913, and after the war, things were very difficult in Holland because they had been blockaded by the English. And
Holland was blockaded by the English, okay.
And no food came in or out, no supplies. And my father, being in the nursery business, he was shipping nursery stock all over Europe and some to America, as a matter of fact. And of course that came to a screeching halt, and we had a pretty tough time economically.
My notes say the menu for your meals was not very luxurious.
No, that's right. My father had a little edict to all us boys, my 3 brothers and I, that we could have één met wat and twee met niks, which means you could have 2 slices of bread with something on it, but the third slice couldn't have anything on it if you wanted a third slice. And you just had to eat the bread without butter or without cheese or jam or anything like that.
Okay.
So it was
and you remember that?
Yes, it was a pretty tough time. Yes.
Okay. Now let's get yourself over here to America.
Okay. My father advertised in the paper and was offered a job by Jackson and Perkins Company.
Jackson and Perkins. The famous Jackson and Perkins.
Yes, the rose growers.
The rose growers. Okay, all right.
And he was subsequently hired because he had had a very good horticultural training in Kew Gardens in London.
Okay.
And which was then one of the most important horticultural schools in Europe.
Yes.
And so he was hired to start a branch nursery for Jackson and Perkins Company in southern New Jersey.
In southern New Jersey, all right.
So fortunately for us, he had the job so that when we came to Ellis Island by the Holland America line, we were treated very well because, you know, we were not going to be a burden on the American
weren't
economy.
You? You had a job.
Right.
All right. All right.
So we did. We went through Ellis Island. Unfortunately, I got mixed up with the steerage passengers and lost track of my parents, so I was kind of lost and got a little bit of rough treatment there at Ellis Island.
You were sort of treated like the luggage, weren't you?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
But fortunately, they got together with me.
And you lived happily.
Right.
Okay, all right, all right.
So from there, we went to Bridgeton, New Jersey. Our house was not ready, so we had to stay in the hotel for a few days. And then we were taken to our new, it was really a farmhouse. And we stayed there for many happy years.
Yes. And here was a unit of 5, your parents and three sons, right?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
And if I recall correctly, you spoke not very much English.
I didn't speak any English.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
My 3 brothers, in Holland they teach you English starting in the 2nd grade. But I was only in the 1st grade, so I never got any...
You hadn't quite climbed
that's right.
that ladder.
But my brother spoke a little bit of English. My mother spoke some English. My father spoke very good English because he had worked in Kew Gardens in England, yes. Yes.
So he could help you then?
Yes, yes.
Well, I hadn't caught on to that.
Yes,
that's great.
yeah.
Okay, so moving on, he got the business started.
Yes, yes.
And of course he had 3 sons, so he had 3 workers right away, right?
Yes. And he soon had me working too.
That's what I thought.
At 10 cents an hour.
At 10 cents an hour. Okay. I heard somebody the other day talking about their big salaries back then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the nursery grew by leaps and bounds. It finally got to the size of 1,200 acres. And grew 100,000 roses a year.
Oh my, and I can't even imagine what that's like.
And I worked in the rose fields when I became older, say about, I must have been nearly in high school when I started working in the fields and participating in budding the roses, which is a way of propagating them.
I've tried to grow roses just enough so I have a slight inkling of the job it is for thousands of acres. Yeah, you had decided you really didn't care about going to college, right?
Yes, yes, that's right.
Until
I worked 1 year.
That's what I thought.
In the nursery all through the winter and the summer, and I decided there must be some better way of living. So I told my dad that I had changed my mind and would like to go to college. And my oldest brother had some friends who had gone to what was then Massachusetts Agricultural College because they had a good program in landscape architecture.
Landscape architecture.
Yes.
Sounds like you're following in the same footsteps,
somewhat,
doesn't it?
yes, yes.
A degree like that.
Yes. So I was able to enter. I wasn't a very brilliant student in high school, but I had marks that were good enough to allow me
to get
enter.
into that program.
Yes. And when I came there, it had been changed to Massachusetts State.
Uh-huh.
And after I left, it became University of Massachusetts, which most people will remember is the name today.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Okay.
And that's where I met my wife.
Oh.
And it was kind of interesting because when my parents left me off at the dining hall when I first entered the university, I met a young fellow on the sidewalk. His name was Donald Donnelly, and we immediately became friends. He lived in the same dorm that I did. And subsequently, he brought me home to his house in Chester, Massachusetts.
Ah, yes.
And that's where I met his sister.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't think too much about her because she was a mere senior in high school, you know, and I was a big man
One
on
of
campus.
those.
Or at least
Of course.
I thought I was.
Of course. Small in stature, big in ideas.
That's right. And so, yes, I was looking forward to the. Well, actually, she wasn't going to come to Massachusetts, but because it was depression at that time. It was in 1932, and it was a depression, and her father, although he was president of the local bank, and he was also head of the Chester, Emery, and Corundum Company in Chester. And he decided he couldn't afford to send his daughter to New Rochelle, where she had planned to go, and sent her to Massachusetts State instead. And so when the freshmen came in, you know, I was eager to look over the crop of freshmen.
You
and I
surveyed
right away recognized someone I knew.
Uh-huh.
Well, it ended up in a marriage, but quite a little bit later, 1939.
You didn't rush into this.
No.
No, yeah, that's good. I have a feeling that's your nature. Okay.
And I made out pretty well and spent 4 years there, and I was rather good in horticulture because I knew more plants than the professor did.
Okay.
And we had the head of our department was Professor Wall, who was quite famous at the time and wrote a lot of books on landscaping and horticulture. And
Did he get you to proofread them?
Yeah. I should have.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
But he was quite a dreamer. They said he wrote his books laying on the pine duff looking at the moon.
Okay. Well, that's a visual portrayal, isn't
And
it?
I learned from experience that he liked plans rendered in baby blue colors. And it didn't make too much difference how good the landscape plans were. He hated anything that looked practical, and he would hold his nose like this.
All right.
And,
Memories, huh?
Yes, yes. And but I passed the course quite well, even though I was a little bit too practical in his mind.
Okay. All right, and then you moved on. What did you end up doing? You had a degree now in landscape architecture. Where'd you go? What'd you do?
Well, that was very difficult. Again, there was a depression on, and my dad took me out to several landscape firms, but they all said they were laying off old employees rather than hiring new ones. And so my oldest brother, who was somewhat politically connected, says, well, I think I can get you a job on the New Jersey Mosquito Control Commission. Well,
okay. Landscape architecture, mosquito control commission. It sounds logical, doesn't it?
That didn't sound too good to me. So Luckily, my father had been forward-looking enough to buy a piece of land in Salem County, New Jersey, which was adjacent to the county where he lived, and thought that this would be a great place for me to start a small nursery, which I did, and started working very hard all by myself, which was quite a shock after the sociability of college, you know, to be working by myself 10, 12 hours a day and not talking to anyone.
But by this time you had a wife.
Yeah, no.
No, not quite.
Not quite, no.
Oh, you were by yourself.
She had one more year of college.
Ah, yes.
And, but we had kept in touch, and in the meantime we had become engaged. And that reminds me of a little story that I heard, because she wrote to me and said that she was working in New York, and she and a boyfriend, mind you, a boyfriend after she was engaged to me.
Okay.
But anyway, they were held up at gunpoint, and I said, well, did they take your ring? She said, no, I wasn't wearing it.
Well, a boyfriend and not wearing my ring? Oh, boy. But
so she was in doghouse either way.
Yeah, but I believe you lived happy ever after
we
that
did,
one.
yes.
Oh, okay. You have a family, so you developed a family.
Yes.
You and your wife developed a family.
We had 5 children, as a matter of fact.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We could tell our audience that one of them is in the room watching this,
yes,
right?
That's right.
Along with a grandson.
That's right.
Oh,
yes.
good, good.
So
okay.
there are 5 children. Kim, the one that's here, is the youngest one, and there are 2 other girls and 3 boys.
And 3 boys.
Yes.
Okay.
1 other girl, I should say, and 3 boys.
All right, all right. We'll get that. We'll talk more about them in just a minute. So your business went on and thrived?
Fairly well. Yes, it was tough going because, you know, starting a new business, especially in the nursing business, you have to work 5 years before you really get plants that are of a size where they can be sold. So you can see that for 4 or 5 years you've practically worked for nothing. You know,
patience is the virtue.
Yes.
Huh? All right.
You can't manufacture plants overnight, unfortunately.
Nature
has to take its time.
I'll buy that one. Okay. What about? Let's talk a little bit about your family now. Your children. Tell me what they're doing now. You're proud of them, I know.
I am very proud of them, and you know, I have to say that it's my wife's work, that she did it so well. I was so busy working, and she was so busy taking care of the kids, and she did such a wonderful job that she got them all into college. And they all graduated from college, and some with advanced degrees. You
know what? I'll bet you're going to hear some of the things I'm going to hear, that you kind of forgot how much you did for them along the way.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, today is not the day we're going to find out about that. But what do they do now?
Well, the oldest one, David, is in California now, and he graduated from the University of Virginia Law School. In fact, he was editor of the law school journal there in his last year.
We're going to have to jump over them, so move right on.
Okay, and he worked in New York in a law firm, then went to become the general counsel for HUD in Washington under the Nixon administration. And then he went to California and became part of a headhunting firm, executive search firm, which he left and finally made his own firm in California, and now he's retired from that. Okay,
we're gonna hear more about him in a few minutes.
Okay.
The rest of them, just kind of briefly on what the rest of them do.
Okay. Kathleen, daughter, lives in Mississippi, and she is she was originally in clothing design, but now is particularly interested in the new computer made sewing machines.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And so she does fancy quilting work and that
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of thing.
Oh, I'm familiar with those.
Right. And then there's Carol, who was in Mississippi, in Maryland, and she is married to a pediatrician, and she does a lot of work
With him?
with him, yes.
Okay.
And then there's Don, who is the middle one, actually, and he is a tennis teacher
I was waiting for that one.
in St. Croix in the Virgin Islands. And I go see him once in a while to see that he behaves.
Oh, I
well.
believe I would. Yeah. You want to take me with you sometime?
Yeah, he's teaching all these good-looking girls down there in St. Croix. You know, I want to make sure he's making out all right.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the fatherly caring. Okay. All right. All right. Have you got one
And
more?
then there's Kim,
Yeah.
who is here in the studio with us, and she is just one of the greatest kids you could want. She takes.
Well, she's here. I expect you to say
She
that.
takes care of all my problems here.
Yeah. All right. All right. I want to move to another area now,
Okay.
and it is your painting, your artwork.
All right.
Yeah. How'd you get started in artwork? Then we're going to show some.
Well, that brings on Kim again, because I was going to, my wife and I were going to a PTA meeting when she was in grade school,
All right.
and the teacher demonstrated painting in acrylics. And it looked so wonderful and so easy that the first thing I did the next day was go out and buy some acrylics and start in painting.
All Kim's fault, isn't it?
Yes, it's all Kim's fault.
Okay,
yeah,
well, she
yeah.
probably is going to take the credit.
And so I took a lot of courses with the Fairfax County Adult Education Program, and ended up doing some one-man shows and things like that.
All right, you've got a one-man show coming up right now. But there's something else. You mentioned one son who is retired, but he's doing something very interesting, right?
Oh, singing, yes.
Yes.
Yes. You know, that's a strange thing, too, because he was very much a businessman. He was very much tied up with business. And even when he had on vacation, he was on the phone taking care of business. And he never sang or anything like that. And I thought, if that boy ever retires, he's never going to retire gracefully. I couldn't have been more wrong.
Okay.
Because he does retire wonderfully. He's learned to sing. He's learned
All right.
to, you know.
I'm going to demonstrate. I'm not going to let you
Okay.
describe it. Because while we look at your pictures, we're going to listen to that son for a minute. Could
Okay.
we start listening?
Sure, sure.
Like a song of love that clings to me, how the thought of you does things to me. Never before has someone been more
unforgettable in every way.
Okay. We didn't get very much of that.
That's how you'll stay.
Okay, but now you can go on and talk about your artwork a little bit.
Yes. Well, I took these courses and think I generally improved a little bit. My wife was at the time working for the Fairfax County Library System, and she managed to get some space for me to exhibit at the local libraries in Fairfax County. And from that I I joined a club where they also had exhibit space, and I exhibited at the club in McLean several times, and finally ended up selling some paintings. And the nice part about it was that I didn't care too much whether I sold them, but if I had enough money to buy additional equipment, it would be very nice.
It's going to be a self-supporting occupation,
And
isn't
that's what happened.
it? I'm sorry that I forgot. I didn't put a note down. I have some very attractive note paper that you made too.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yes. It's some people think that I work, and they don't know that I just scrounge and get all these marvelous discussions with people like our Lou and get beautiful note paper. You do sell note paper if anybody really wanted some.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay. And
yeah.
if they could just call you up and see what you
Sure,
got, or
yeah.
come and right.
Right. Yeah, I'd be glad to have them come over and see them if they like.
I'm not trying to sell his. I'm trying to sell his artwork. That's what I'm trying to sell, because he certainly has done that. All right, we're about ready to wind down now. Can you think of anything we've really forgotten?
No, not too much. I get frequent visits from my son and daughters, and I go out to see them in St. Croix and San Francisco.
Yeah, he's
they're
gonna
wonderful
take me
places
to
to visit.
We got another one of your paintings up there.
yeah.
That's great. What
Yeah.
you're saying is, boy, you've got an attentive family.
Yes, very close. And just recently we had a very nice reunion at Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Oh, how
And
terrible
we had
to have to go
32 people there.
32 people at a.
Yeah.
Was that a birthday party?
No, it
No,
was
not
just a
Time to
a
get
family
together.
reunion, which you have every 2 years, and the families take turns. The five
Planning
families
it.
take turn planning it. Yes.
Hey, that's a pretty neat
So,
idea, isn't
we've
it?
been all up and down the East Coast in various places, and we've been to Arizona, to a Dude Ranch, and we've been to California.
Well, you
to
live
another
it up.
ranch.
You and your family live it up, don't you,
They
Lou?
also had another one in St. Croix in the Virgin Islands, and they were all very well attended with 17 grandchildren. And,
Oh boy. Oh boy.
And, no, 13 grandchildren and 7 great-grandchildren.
Well, I'll tell you what, Lou. I'm envious of those grandchildren. I could stand a grandfather, also. But what we do want people to remember is that you do have artwork. They've seen the examples. If anybody wants a gift or something, they could give you a call, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Sure, okay.
Yes.
All right, we're going to say thank you so much, Lou DeWilde. Did I get it?
Yes.
Oh boy, I got it. For sharing, coming all the way from Holland here to help us get acquainted. We appreciate, and don't forget that the only way we're going to learn about you and the interesting life you've led is for you to get in touch with us. Or if you know a neighbor who has an interesting life, let us know, because we'll take the ball from there. You just let us know, right, Lou?
Yes.
Okay.